Catch, quick question. I have a 2080 Ti. Is it worth upgrading to the RTX 30 series? Well, it depends, Catch. 2080 Ti is still considered a very high performance card. If I was you, if you're not experiencing any performance issues, you get a consistent averaging close to 60 frames per second kind of performance on your games, and in general, slowdowns or anything like that, I would hold off for now. This is good that you bring this up. The 30 series actually created a bit of controversy when it first came out because they made a huge deal out of it, especially the Ti series, and I'm gonna touch on that in a little bit as well. The 30 series came out bragging about the RTX and being able to perform great at 4K resolutions and all that stuff, which was all true. And then some of the enthusiasts and tech geeks out there started doing the benchmarking. And guess what they found out? 30 series, yes, excellent performance at 4K. It can even do 60 frames per second, decent performance with RTX. Then they compared it to 2080, and they found that the 2080 performs better at 1080 resolution. Basically, almost every time under 40K, the 1080 consistently performs better or as well or close enough to the 3080, is what they discovered. Now, since then, there have been some changes, so that may have changed a little bit with the newer iterations. So that'd be the number one thing. I also hear that the 40 series is going to be released this year or something like that. Yeah, 40 series, hold off on it right now. There's a lot of speculation in there right now, and they're saying it's going to need even more juice than the 3080 to power it, which is a very bad thing for a computer. The 3080 already pulls way too much electricity for one piece of hardware in a computer. It's insane. It's ridiculous. Anything higher than that, it starts getting into the realm of, oh my God, what the heck is this, right? You're a speculation catch chicken. Nice jelly. But going back to your original question, two things to keep in mind. Again, if you're not having any performance issues with the 2080, keep it. If you absolutely want to upgrade for, say, the VRAM amount, say a higher VRAM amount, if you have anything less than 8 gigs of VRAM, that makes sense, but don't get a 3080. Get a 3060. I have a 3060 12 gigger. That's the only reason I upgraded. It performs slightly higher, supposedly, on benchmarks, and it has a lot more, 6 more gigabytes of VRAM, which goes a long way into offsetting overhead on your machine, right? If you're going to get a 3080, forget the Ti. Don't bother with the Ti. You know where people get the Ti? Because that's what Nvidia markets. It's an overclocked graphics card. You're not really going to get that much more of a difference from on an FTW Ti than you do from a regular 3080. It's just overclocking, just like anything else overclocking. If you're into that and you want to get every last little inch of performance out of your machine, go ahead. But what they never tell you is that the caveat of overclocking is that you're reducing the life of your hardware. You're increasing the chances that that thing's going to fall apart at some point. And no matter how good their benchmarks for resiliency and endurance and like lifetime and wear and tear, whatever, it adds wear and tear to it. And when you're pulling as much electricity as it is, like the 3080, that just, it's not worth it. You save a few bucks, get a regular 3080. If you absolutely have to have that 80 at the end, I would say a 3070 would be even better. If they already put out the Super Series for them, that's another good way to save money and get more performance out of the card. But again, you're risking things like overclocking and stuff like that, which I would avoid as much as possible. I had a 2060 Super before I upgraded, and it performed great. The difference between it performed like a 2070, and the difference between a 2070 and a 2080 is negligible, to be honest. It really is. I mean, if you're a real hardcore enthusiast, you may go like, I got an extra 1 or 2 frames out of it. The human eye doesn't care. It doesn't really tell that apart. Some people are convinced that it does, and if that's what you want to believe, go ahead. But in reality, there's a lot of other things that affect frame rates and other stuff other than the graphics card. that have much more weight on that. So long story short, even though prices have gone down, I would avoid the 3080 if you're especially if you're on a budget. If you want to get the 3080, don't get the Ti series. Get a regular 3080, preferably one with a higher VRAM than a typical 3080, because you're going to get much more life out of it, much more use out of it. It's going to be more stable. Overclocking is overrated. I've been seeing overclocking since it started way back in the day, and it made more sense back then. But in this day and age, when you have a current gen i7 with some DDR4, DDR5 RAM and a decent graphics card, you do not need to overclock that thing for no reason. Like, absolutely not. Overclocking also depends, the actual performance difference depends on how well the software can take advantage of it. If the software is not designed to take advantage of overclocking, it's really not going to do much of a difference. So there's many layers to this that a lot of people ignore or don't understand of how the technology works, and they get hooked by all this hype about the high performance of the cards, and they end up wasting more money than they need to. So a bit long-winded, but I figured you need those two little bits of info there.